nonsense.
All right, Pedro and Annabelle, you got the first one up.
Yeah. Annabelle, do you want to talk? I mean, Annabelle was just presenting in the UX showcase about the beautifying UI, so I think you have a momentum going about this topic. So you want to talk about this?
Sure. I added it to the agenda because you said you couldn't make it, but I feel like I don't know what the actual action point here was. Everyone knows that I love doing that work and the benefits are clear and the negatives, but I don't know specifically what your goal was with this comment. So perhaps you could explain.
Yeah, I can talk. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, I mean, in the end is, just keep doing it. And it's the way that we kind of used to work back in the day at GitLab, especially with smaller things, just do it, not a lot of, prior validation and things like that for smaller changes that we could revert or easily adapt. So yeah, I was just thinking that that beautifying UI, seeing, Annabelle and Phil pushing out all of those changes, it gave me this feeling of nostalgia and also like a positive vibe of we're actually shipping things in an area of the product where there are so many, invisible constraints. We know about them, but it just can sometimes constrain us to do certain things. So yeah, we want to start allocating time each milestone, at least for me and Annabelle, to do more of this type of work. It could be any part of the product or documentation, although of course, code review issues are, top of mind and because we think about them every day. So yeah, it's something that we wanted to do. We could, do it alone, ideally with an engineer to pair with us here and there. And yeah, I commented there that staff engineers, usually have this kind of autonomy and are expected to, allocate this amount of time to do whatever they want, more or less. So Phil, of course, was a natural first choice because he was also involved in the beautifying UI, but we wanted to involve more engineers and include, if reasonable. So yeah, I think that's the first point about, what is the appetite from the engineering side to work more like this, for smaller things. Yeah, that's the preface and then what my intention with this point. Annabelle, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
No.
Great.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Great pause. Great delivery. That's good. I'll just add my point here. Yeah, we've talked about this in the past within the team as well. And Stanislav, you're on the call, so if you want to speak up, do mention what you think about it. But yeah, I would totally put Stanislav also for rotation on this topic. I think it would be a great addition. Stanislav, do you have any thoughts?
I'll just say absolutely yes.
I figured.
Okay, so this was not a forced volunteering of Stanislav.
Blink twice if it wasn't.
Exactly.
No, this is good. This is really good. So going on to my second part, which is the thoughts and concerns. Yeah, just wondering how much capacity were you thinking could be beneficial here, and like useful to have allocated from an engineer perspective, because as long as it doesn't block us from proceeding other stuff, I think it's totally fine. And Kai had a similar concern. Kai?
Yeah, I think my concern is around capacity. Every milestone feels like a lot. especially given which I think it's just every milestone feels like a lot, and we need to be cautious about how we define capacity here. I know from watching this happen in 15, it was I think it was more capacity than I expected out of both Phil and Annabelle were like used for this effort. And so like if we're talking about that level of capacity in every milestone, that doesn't seem reasonable necessarily. And then we also have, which I put in here, like another concept currently, like we have a thing that we call 10% time, which is sort of for engineers to go and do what they want to do that is like part of their planned capacity and undirected time. And so I think if engineers want to use it for this, that makes sense. If engineers want to use it for something else, like I think that makes sense. If we're talking about 10% time and then another 10% time for beautifying the UI, like we need to have like maybe a different conversation.
What are engineers currently using? Do you have any examples of what they're currently using your 10% time for?
No
More
idea.
importantly, can you show me in the handbook where this is?
It's our engineering. It's a policy of the code review group to give engineers. 10%. It was something we did like last year. We opted to provide that as space to go explore versus trying to direct all of the time. Be more deliberate about it.
It would be cool if we should go and update the handbook with some examples of what people have been doing it. I've seen some things like, I think Phil added that about me section for your personal page. I think that was that. Is that 10% time that you're talking about?
Phil's a unique case because he's also a staff engineer. Like I wouldn't necessarily use Phil as like my example of what other engineers use their time for, because Phil also gets staff engineering time, which is separate and above his 10% and his capacity commitment to us.
He gets 20% time.
He gets an abnormal amount of time to do things, but he's productive in all forms. And I don't want to like speak to Phil like directly.
And it's very complicated to define. It's just like he has a looser defined scope of work. Let's put it that way. And that just comes from like being more senior and being more comfortable in complexity of the code. So ships more. That's proportionate to the maturity in the team. But yeah, I linked there, Amy, where we define that in the handbook. It's a broad thing, but yeah, we don't keep track explicitly, but we do encourage it. I would go to maybe when the engineers are participating on the beautifying effort, then they would allocate those 10% to those efforts. They won't be forced to it, so I would feel like the impact would be a little bit less big in that sense. So, but we can try it out and see how it goes outside of that normal form. Beyond Phil, but I'm more interested about rotating beyond Phil and not just keeping it within the staff, just for more satisfaction and more experience in like touching this, because it's the garden, right? We should all be gardeners of our own garden and helping improve that. So yeah, Thomas, I don't know if you'd be up for it, because I feel like you're more comfortable in the back, as we talked about often, but this wouldn't be a mandatory or anything. It would be something that you'd be stepping up if you want to. But yeah, I'll give it a try, and we'll keep the allocation reasonable, so to speak, and see how it goes from there.
It might be easier to figure out time spent and allocation if people knew, or at least had an idea of what they could be working on. So part of the last beautification effort, we had this issue where everyone was just kind of dumping ideas. And if someone wanted to participate, they could just go and look at that, code review beautification issue, if they're passionate about any of them, or if they have any ideas of their own, post them. And then we can not schedule it, but if you want to take on a bigger thing from that list, you can figure out how much of that time in your milestone it might take.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, having that work prepared is definitely helpful in figuring out what to pick. And from our perspective, in terms of planning, we will just assign a buffer capacity and for that person on that milestone, and then they'll figure out what they want to work on. Let's wing it, I would say.
Yeah, I think Annabelle's suggestion, which seems that it also worked well in the last milestone for that initiative. I think it's great that we can maybe start there and just dump, some existing issues or just random ideas of things that we could do. Me and Annabelle, we could do that. And I mean, anyone could participate, but we could start. And then see how we can go from there and see everyone's appetite and capacity. I think, yeah, I think we should, from respect the 10% from the engineering side, or at least that's what I'm sensing is the requirement here is to keep that allocation of 10% maximum. We'll probably do something similar in UX. I'm not sure yet how and or how much, but it wouldn't be. It will be a minor part of our time.
All right. Any more thoughts on that, or should we move on? All right, then we'll move on. So I'm pulling the topic that has been discussed on the UX calls. I've been catching the recordings about the feature of attention request feature, and I think I'm up to date with the latest thing. So I see that we're in the verge of starting to test this with like external users, whatever that really means. What I wanted to ask here is whether there's some things that you'd like to improve technically in the feature that we already know, and that we already know it's a problem before we go proceed with the testing. Because sometimes as you're doing the tests, you're seeing like repeating feedback. Yes, we know about this. And usually those are small cosmetic things that we can improve to have a better results on the tests. I wonder, do we have anything like that, like small tweaks that we could improve? And if so, do we know what those are? Or do we want to keep the same thing that we're testing internally as externally? I don't know, Pedro, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, if you want, you can take that.
Well, we had some hypotheses from the prototype testing, but from talking to the GitLab folks, they didn't seem to have quite the same issues that we thought they might. There's a couple things that I could suggest, but I don't know how feasible or what the appetite is. There was some confusion about, for instance, whether merged or closed MRs should generate an attention request. Some people were confused about that. It seems as though they do, but maybe they shouldn't, maybe they should. It's not necessarily that clear, but generally there was some inconsistencies in what people expected to generate an attention request. We didn't really see any problems with the icon, which we thought we might. People thought it was fairly clear. We did get one piece of feedback that it wasn't super clear, but we got others that was.
And it isn't the big hurdle that it could be. Yeah, then probably makes sense to continue the test as it was, and we'll reformulate what we need to reformulate once you have more concrete conclusions. Thanks. Pedro, do you want to add anything? No.
No. Like Annabelle. No.
I like hers better. That was like a more pause.
Yeah. I have to learn from Annabelle.
Practice.
Pause everything. Practice that pause on my own in front of a mirror. No, I think what Ben said makes a lot of sense. The icon is not the deal breaker, is not the thing. And as Ben said, like it wasn't mentioned that much or almost at all as an issue with the GitLab team. But again, the GitLab team is just a few users that are internal users that are used to how we build GitLab and just the user experience of it. So it's great that we're planning on including other kinds of users. I think, yeah, my concerns right now are other foundational issues that I highlighted in the issue about future of attention requests, which I can drop the link there if it's not there already. So yeah, let's see how that goes. But I have to reinforce that there are lots of great things about what we built. Okay, so it's not like, oh, it's all bad. There are positive things, and that is also again reflected on the feedback that we got from the GitLab team about knowing who needs to take the next action. That is crystal clear. Of course, once you understand the icon and all of that, so when you learn it, it works well. And the lists focus on what you need to do next, not having to filter your to-dos to know what merge requests you need to take a look at. So yeah, there are positive things for sure, or else we wouldn't have gotten this far, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that was clear from the calls that I watched. It just feels, from my perspective, it feels like we're being extremely careful about rolling a feature that is global, and it's not as fragmented, like not as scopable as our usual features. I feel like that's where the care and concern comes from. So anyway, any way that we can support, just let us know. We're happy to jump in and do a few tweaks if you need to. Can I move on? All right. Just a quick FYI. So one of our front-end engineers, Tomasz, he'll be borrowed for 3 milestones to the editor group to help out with an effort that they have about remote development. And this is integrated. There's an epic there describing what they're trying to do. In a nutshell, like the TLDR is going to help validate the technical viability of having the Web IDE connect to a remote dev environment, whatever that looks like. There's also the Web IDE VS Code project going on. So there's a bunch of things that Tomasz can help out, figure out. He's going to be joining other people in editor. And yeah, he'll be focused on that for 3 milestones, but he'll still be providing some backup for VS Code as we onboard more people onto that. Stanislav, I'm looking at you. So we'll talk about it for 15.2. Probably going to start some small issues to get started there. And that's a separate topic, but yeah, he'll still be able to provide some support there, but he won't be focused on that. His focus will be entirely on that other project. Pedro, you have a question?
I'm sad, but happy at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, we will hire new engineers for that group or move existing engineers?
Move. So no hires will be done. So again, this is basically a focused effort of validation. If you remember what Paul Slaughter about Thea.
Wait, do you mean long-term, Pedro? I think just to clarify, you mean
okay.
long-term will we hire?
Yeah, long-term, yes.
Then
after the borrow, the
I don't know.
plan should, I think it depends on what the outcome of that effort is. Like Tomas is going for 3 months, and then depending on what the outcome of that effort is, that'll help the product team figure out how to build or not build a business case for what it would actually take to staff a full team to go and deal with this on a long-term basis.
Thanks for cutting me off.
Decisions about where that comes from.
No, I was going in a totally different direction. No, that's much better answer. Thanks. That's it. Yeah.
I just wanted to remind anyone who wants to post feedback on the sidebar update. The sidebar has been updated on merge requests on GitLab project. There's an issue with a ton of comments. So if you have any feedback, please post them there. And also Kai brought up, should we put this also on the marketing site? And I just pinged Phil to see if we could do that. I was waiting for the sidebar to be sticky, which it now is. And also just for your information, I'm still working on the sidebar. It's there, but it's still not even close to perfect. There's so many changes we still need to make. So I'm still working on that.
Cool. Thanks for the update. I think all of the it's clear all of the effort and thought that you and Phil have put in there has been well, and the feedback is generally positive in minor things. I think it's much like the beautifying effort where we're feeling things are overall good, and there's little things here and there that we've got to catch, and that's super positive to see. So thank you.
We already talked about this, I think yesterday, Annabelle, but to share with the group, what do you think are the issues or issue that you'd like to explore and address before enabling this globally?
We got a lot of feedback that people do miss seeing certain read-only items from the sidebar across other tabs. We can explore adding reviewer and assignees potentially into the header in some way. I'd like to see if we could do something like issues do with that sticky header. Maybe we could put some of that information up there so it's always available in a small little bar. The to-do button needs to move out of the sidebar and be available globally. Again, probably in the sticky header, probably the tab bar, it's already sticky. I keep saying sticky though, and I don't want to add more sticky stuff. So I'm also playing around with making the top nav not sticky. That's a huge change that will not be happening anytime soon. Just another idea. I don't want to have all that fixed stuff. But yeah, I think we're getting close to having it maybe available more globally. It's just, it needs a few more tweaks. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that makes sense. That's also what I assumed would be the issues to try to address. I think it will be challenging, at least the first one. You know, what are the items that people miss and would like to always have available in other tabs, and how can we put them in probably the header, which is the only thing that is common across all tabs. How can we place them there and not overload it even more? And you know, for example, assignees and reviewers, I'm just thinking out loud, you know, those two things, would they be editable or not? Only read only? Yeah, so I think it's a very interesting challenge to solve. Nonetheless, I think the biggest benefit I've seen with this is the change itself as a trigger to have these conversations and to have that feedback in the issue. I think, to me, it's the most positive thing from my perspective. Regardless if this sticks or not, and if we roll it out, I think that's already really good for us to understand what are the points that we need to consider when doing something like this.
I agree, especially just what I just said about adding fixed elements. It's like, I don't want to add more fixed elements. We already have many, so can we remove others? And then putting the to-do button, do we need to move the to-do button globally? Do we need to put it in a more special location so that it's the same across all pages? Are the to-dos kind of broken? Yeah, like, do we need to deal with to-dos notifications before we touch all this kind of stuff? So it's like, it snowballs very quickly. Do we need to work on notifications? We've got 3 minutes.
I'm only partially poking Pedro. This is not.
I just want to see you do it in 3 minutes.
That would be the goal of our revamped notification system. Is like, you don't need a lot of time to understand what's going on. It's incredibly efficient. If we had to talk about the current state and the current experience, we would take 1 hour, 2 hours or more. Ben, we have a few minutes if you want to voice that.
Yeah, it was a lengthy recruiting process to get the personas we needed, but invites are out, and yeah, we're getting some schedules for the category maturity scorecard for the editor extension. That will start next week.
What, since we have like, I don't know, 30 seconds, what is the one? Is it all internal people or is it internal and external?
It's external.
Oh, okay.
Was it supposed to be internal?
I think for the maturity level, you could have done just internal.
No.
But
Made it-
okay, that explains the lengthy. Okay, then that makes sense that finding the external users was more challenging.
Yeah, I might have glazed
It's
over
fine.
part of the handbook page. Trying to read it all carefully.
That's okay. We had the same question a few months ago. Me, Kai, and I think Adam. And yeah, we weren't sure because there was some contradiction. It was ambiguous about at this level of maturity if you needed internal and external or only internal. But you could do only internal. I think that was the conclusion. But external is even better. So if we're able to pull that off. We might even, jump 2 levels of maturity. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really excited if it's external. So that's awesome. I appreciate all the effort there.
Yeah, and if any of you have commentary about the scorecard process, I've also been asked by my team to look at that. I haven't done it yet, but it's open, I guess, for debate. If there's improvements, they're talking about whether or not this can align with a benchmarking process that we do, since they are pretty similar. So I'll be thinking about that as well.
Well, thanks everyone. It was great to see everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll all chat again soon.